Hey crew, before we get started today, I just wanted to remind you that the end of the episode doesn't mean the end of the fun. You can follow us on Twitter and Facebook and join our Facebook group Enterprising Interlocutions to continue the conversation. We've also got a Discord server where fans of Just Enough Trope Network podcasts come to talk about Star Trek, films, TV shows, and more. We've got a link to the Discord in the notes for this show, and you can always find us on your social network of choice at EISTPOD. We've got something a little special today. It's been sort of half planning and half serendipity that the first few episodes of Enterprising Individuals this season have focused on Jean-Luc Picard and the Borg, seeing as how they're the focus of the new CBS All Access series entitled Picard. Last week, I spoke with author Kelly Fitzpatrick about the Voyager two-parter Scorpion, and we talked a lot about the Borg and specifically Seven of Nine, who, of course, was featured last week on Picard. And I thought we'd keep striking while this particular iron is hot. I'm the co-host of another podcast on the Just Enough Trope Network called BackTrekking, where I and my co-host Gooey Fame examine the real-world inspirations of your favorite Trek episodes, be they movies or cultural figures or even historical events. On our most recent episode, we talked about Scorpion and the fable featured in it that gives it its title, and we compare and contrast it to another piece of media that draws inspiration from that fable, the Academy Award-winning film The Crying Game. It's a great pair of episodes, it's a great movie that I think really hasn't gotten its due over the years, and we have a fascinating discussion about the two and the theme of trying to fight against your nature. And I'm going to play it right now in its entirety. If you're not up to speed on Picard, don't worry about it, because we stick mostly to the Voyager episodes and the film during the show. But if you are watching Picard, don't forget that we host a live Picard recap episode every Thursday night at 7 p.m. Central. You can follow us on Twitter at EISTPod to get notified when we go live, and follow the link that we tweet to hear us discuss the latest episode of Picard. And you can even join in the conversation by tweeting at us during the show using the hashtag Discoverage, and we'll read your questions and comments on the air. That's it for me. I'm going to throw to the other me and Gooey Fame good luck crossing the river, and with that, let's get underway. Hey, welcome back everybody to BackTrekking, the podcast where we look back at the real-world inspirations behind classic episodes of Star Trek. I'm one of your hosts, Ka1iban, and I don't know about nature, but my nature is to eat an entire bag of potato chips. I'm joined by my co-host.
Hi, I'm Gooey Fame, and, thanks for doing this podcast with me and not stinging me.
Well, we'll see. We're not even halfway through yet. We're a part of the Just Enough Trope Podcast Network, which is home to many shows about your favorite topics like TV shows, films, comic books, video games, anime, music, and more. You can find out more by going to justenoughtrope.com or by following at JustEnoughTrope on Twitter. Keep the geek fires burning. And here we are. It's episode 22.
Yes.
And Gooey, I'm sick of talking.
Oh, you're all talked out?
Not on this episode, just in general. Yeah, I've been talking a lot recently, and as the year goes on and ramps up, a lot of shows and things that we've been doing on the network have been wrapping up as well. So it's that sort of exhausted that you get after you go for a run or you come back from the gym or something like that, and you feel tired, you ache. But there's like, I did pretty good. I could eat a bag of potato chips.
Oh, well, I had just heard that you lost part of an ep and had to redo it too. Like, yes. That's just absolute. I've had that happen in the past. Devastating.
Yes. Yeah. Well, the story behind that was we were recording an episode, our last episode of Just Enough Trope, when we were talking about Birds of Prey, and we got about 20 minutes in, and I had a coughing attack because I'm still kind of getting over the bronchitis that I had. And so we just said, well, we can't go forward, so we'll just hang out and play Switch or something. We got back. I felt fine. Here we go. And I hit a button on the recorder, but it wasn't the record button, apparently.
Oh, no.
So we got through, like halfway through the review of Birds of Prey, which we did not enjoy, and realized what the situation was. And we had that was a real dark time of the soul there.
No. Yeah, I've been through that. I think once with Pro Wrestling Required Viewing, we took us like 3 tries to record an episode. We had to eventually just be like, okay, we'll come back to this in a couple months when we haven't thought about this.
Yeah. My my biggest, I think, professional failure in that regard is very early on when I was doing this, I went to a convention that was like a writers convention, and there were a lot of authors there, authors of sci-fi and fantasy and YA, and because I was very fortunate to get a chance to interview a lot of them. They didn't have to talk to me, but I think it was because one of the themes of the convention was development of like young writers and people, of which I wasn't. I just wanted to get a little bit of their fame on me, but they all agreed to talk to me. So I got like maybe 8 hours of interviews with different authors, and I got home and I realized that probably 60% of it was worthless.
Oh, man.
Because, and I didn't understand this at the time, but the way I was recording was I was using my computer because I didn't have a digital recorder at that point. And I had a mic that plugged out of the USB and went right into like an XLR microphone. But it wasn't a shielded cable. And in the environment of the convention center, which had very powerful Wi-Fi and also had, 8,000 kids who all had their cell phones on, there was a crazy amount of RF interference.
Oh,
and
wow.
So a lot of the talking and the interviews were just obliterated by that sound that you get, when you put your phone too close to your car stereo or whatever. And it was devastating. And the only thing I could do was just, take a week, wear sackcloth and beat myself. And then I went back and I ended up I published the ones that were fine, and I ended up transcribing to my website and publishing the rest of them like that as like a text sort of
that's cool.
article. Yeah. So
you get something out of it.
Yeah, but the good thing about big mistakes is you generally don't make them more than once.
Yeah, there's so many things I've done that now I'm like constantly, or not even like consciously thinking about it, but like one is typically making sure I'm recording. I'm like afraid of losing any recording.
Turning it on, yeah. Gotta hit the button. Well, before we get to today's backtrack, I wanted to talk a little bit about the news in the world of Star Trek. I read an interview with Rebecca Romaine, who is launching a jewelry line, and she was speaking to this is not a website or an outlet that we usually get Trek news from, but she was speaking to fashion site The Daily Front Row, and they're asking her about her TV work, and she said that, quote, "I've also been working on Star Trek here and there, but I can't really talk about that," end quote. Which would lead, and this was a very recent interview, like last week, so that would lead, or has led, a lot of people to believe that we can expect more from number one in the Star Trek universe, possibly in the form of a Pike series.
Yeah, that's got to be, that's like basically happening at this point, it seems.
Yeah, I don't know why I agree. I mean, it's been rumored for a while. Now we're actually seeing physical things that make you think, oh, that's going to happen. But if that's a gimme, and it's not, I guess, until everybody signs their contracts, but people want it so bad, so announce it.
Yeah, maybe it is the contract thing. They're like, gotta make sure.
Yeah, if you announce it and people get excited, then the agent comes back and says, seems like people are pretty excited. You want to add another zero on there.
Yeah.
Yeah, hopefully she's talking about that. I can't see anywhere else that she, would fit unless they were going to have her be a very young girl in like Discovery or something like that. Right?
Yeah.
That's her era, like the TOS era. Or no, I'm sorry, she was already in Discovery. Like just going either forward or backward. It seems like she can only really be in that era.
Yeah.
Maybe she ends up in the future or something.
Or I don't know, maybe she just plays someone else. I don't know why they would do that, but
they could totally do that though too. Yeah.
You're now an alien in the Enterprise reboot.
Yeah, maybe Picard takes a break and he ends up watching the X-Men movies, as a joke, like an in-joke, and then she's in there.
Yeah, he's like, I never really got superhero movies.
Yeah. I don't like sci-fi, but comic books are okay. Okay, so that was a little news talk. I want to continue the tradition of our pop-ins, where we talk about pop culture for just a real brief moment. I want you to know that I just got a $4 Sonic ticket.
Oh, $4. What's that? Tuesday at 11?
Well, something like that, yeah. I'm a T-Mobile customer, and T-Mobile sorry. Well,
it's an ad.
Yeah. Well, maybe I shouldn't have admitted that out loud, but one of the things that they're doing is like this, it's T-Mobile Tuesdays, and they give you, discounts and stuff. And the newest discount was $4 Sonic the Hedgehog ticket.
Nice.
And I thought, well, I'm going to go to the movie anyway, so I'll get it cheap right here.
Sure. You looking forward to it?
It could just be like the trailers I've seen. The Jim Carrey jokes look kind of lame, but if it's just fun and it just celebrates this character and delivers, that sort of tweener kind of action comedy that you're looking for, it could go down real easy.
I feel like everything points to it being kind of generic, like all the jokes, all the fact that it's like, basically focus tested to perfection, like we got the perfect design for Sonic, and
we got the world's best expert at acting against CGI characters, James Marsden, in there.
Exactly. So it is all pointing to, we've got Jim Carrey, who to me seems like he might be kind of checked out. I don't know. Like at least those jokes weren't bringing anything to get me excited. But
I see, we see him interact with other people and characters in the trailer, but I see a lot of scenes of him on his own. Do you know what I mean? Reacting to a screen that he's looking at, or just inside of his Dr. Robotnik mobile or whatever. And that's, it's like Robin Williams. Like, you can have him bounce off somebody, but he can also just, stand there and be a comedy dervish on his own.
Sure, yeah.
Maybe that's the best way to use him. Something that I like about Sonic, and I know that Sonic has some good games and he's got some bad games, and he's got some weird sort of detours in his lore. Mm-hmm. I think that have to do with trying to freshen up the original premise or gameplay of his game, but it's very basic. We don't have to worry about Echidna or Werewolf Sonic or any of that stuff. The core of Sonic is runs fast, wants rings. We've got that, and you could make a movie out of that.
You can sort of take him out of his world too, and it could probably work okay.
And in this case, he's out of his world. He's on Earth or whatever.
Yeah, but even to me, that choice points towards they've done the, people want to see, real life, so we had to, make it set on Earth, instead of wherever. But I guess I get that,
Yeah, I guess. What's he going to do? Just hang out Green Hill Zone. But bringing it to real life, though, means that we don't get him hanging out in the Casino Night Zone, which would be great. And has probably the best music.
Yeah, that's the best. I love all of those types of levels, carnival, whatever.
Yeah,
those various types. I guess it also is I guess you'd have to get kind of creative with how you make a bunch of ramps and stuff look like a place people live, but I guess they've done it in the 3D Sonic games a little bit more. Yeah,
right. And next film, you bring James Marsden to Sonic's world.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, that's the Smurfs did it. Sonic can do it. Space
Jam did it.
Yes, there you go.
Isn't this kind of the first half of Space Jam, only with Sonic?
Sonic Jam. Yeah, I think this is a well-worn premise. I hope Sonic gets a human girlfriend. I think that's something from one of the games that they should adapt.
This is one of those, it's gone so far, now I'm afraid to ask, but what's going on with is it Knuckles? What's the Knuckles meme? What is that?
Knuckles. Which one? There's a Knuckles meme?
Yeah, and it's an alt-right thing.
Oh, God, I don't know.
Okay, then never mind. Forget it.
Yeah, maybe I don't want to know.
Yeah, maybe it's not that widespread then. Don't worry about it.
Not yet.
Speaking of memes, I used the Billie Eilish at the Oscars meme correctly today, and I felt 10 years younger.
Which one's this? Why don't I know about what you're talking about?
Oh, Billie Eilish was at the Oscars, and I mean, the follow-up question is why, but I mean, she's famous, whatever. And somebody was doing something. Some older actor told some kind of joke or something, and some people laughed, but it's just so perfect. Like, you just show this very famous, rich and famous 18-year-old, and she's got this look like, what the fuck is going on here? Like, this kind of side-eye
I did
look.
see that. Now, yeah. Yeah, I haven't seen a lot of that meme, but I saw that picture, and I was, like, kind of disturbed, and I was like, I'm moving on. The last I heard about her was her talking about, you know, rappers not having guns, and I was like,
yeah,
are you my mom? Like,
these rappers don't have guns. He's not. He didn't sell drugs. Yeah. Well, whatever. She's just calling it like she sees it.
Yeah, no, I guess so. Bruce Springsteen never worked in a factory. You know.
Right, yeah. He doesn't even own a motorcycle. Come on. Well, anyway, I guess we can do a pop-in later and talk about our impressions of Sonic the Hedgehog, the film.
Yeah.
Or people can hear you talk about it on Virtual Theater, too,
on
your other podcast. Let's get to our featured subject for today's show. A scorpion, which cannot swim, asks a frog to carry it across a river on the frog's back. The frog hesitates, afraid of being stung by the scorpion, but the scorpion argues that if it did that, they would both drown. The frog considers this argument sensible and agrees to transport the scorpion. Midway across the river, the scorpion stings the frog anyway, dooming them both. The dying frog asks the scorpion why it stung the frog, despite knowing the consequence, to which the scorpion replies, I couldn't help it. It's in my nature. It's an old story. It's often misattributed to Aesop, but its moral is similar to another common aphorism, that a leopard can't change its spots. But what if that leopard is an IRA soldier who falls in love with the girlfriend of his hostage? That's the plot of the 1992 movie, The Crying Game.
Take out my wallet. I want you to do something for me. I want you to find her out. Tell her I was thinking of her.
Listen, there's something I should tell you.
Shouldn't I go? Yes.
Vincent Canby of the New York Times calls The Crying Game ingenious and exceptionally well acted.
You vanished quite effectively.
You know her, Jimmy.
Jimmy, is it?
Leave her out of this.
You gonna tell me what's wrong?
No, not here.
Funny the way things go. Never the way you expected.
The Crying Game, for as big as it was in 1992, and it was huge. It was the Gangnam Style of 1992.
Really?
Has just about disappeared now. I had to kind of dig it up to watch it. Had you seen the movie before?
I had never seen it. I had only heard of it. I had no clue what it was about.
Yeah.
And in fact, in my attempt to watch it, first I got a DVD from the library, and it was like probably one of the first DVDs ever made. And it's terrible quality. And then
did it have no cover art? Is it just totally silver, like blank on the top of the disc?
Yeah, it did. And it was like a box within like a black void, and I was like, can I zoom in? Like what?
What are you describing? You're describing depression. Depression is like a box within a black void.
It was definitely like a prototype DVD. I feel like this should not be sold. So I was like, okay, this is probably their newest copy they could find, at the library.
DVDs used to come like that. They'd come in paper boxes. The cover would be, just like folded tag board, and then there'd be like a plastic latch, and then the disc itself would be blank on top, and then have the movie on the bottom. And then sometimes there would be a little colored ring around the hole in the middle that would say The Crying Game or whatever on it.
Yeah.
And then sometimes you would have like, if it was a foreign film, you'd have, I got this with anime a lot, like the top side would be Ranma 1/2 sub, and then you flip it over, and the bottom side is the dub.
I had a copy of UHF that had the commentary track on one side.
Yeah, or the commentary. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, they didn't care necessarily about aesthetics. They just had to get it out.
Yeah, and it was a storage problem too, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah.
Now you can buy like one HD Blu-ray or whatever that's got all 6 Star Trek films on it.
Right.
Yeah, this movie was huge, and really the big thing about this movie in 1992, and just so you know, 2 things. One, this is totally my idea, so if you're mad about what we're talking about, come at me at Ka1iban on Twitter. Number 2, we're going to spoil the hell out of this whole thing. So this is a movie that, and we'll talk about the quote-unquote twist or twists in the movie, and if this is a movie with a gimmick or a gimmick with a movie, we'll get into that. But this is a movie that it's best to not know a lot going in.
Yeah, yeah.
But when I saw this in the theater in 1992, that was me. I went in knowing nothing about it. The reason that I went is because it was very highly rated. Everybody who talked about it gave it thumbs up, gave it 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10. I think it was the first 10 out of 10 I ever saw my local newspaper give to a film. So I thought,
wow.
I got to go to this thing. And so, yeah, I went knowing nothing at all.
Was this, did you bring anyone? Did you convince anyone to go, like Thin Red Line style?
Oh, my God. Are you just collecting stories about my theatrical misfires?
That's, yeah, basically is what I'm trying to...
While you're collecting them, have this one, too. I convinced a bunch of friends to go to The Fifth Element, which... You might you may not understand this because you probably grew up at a time where it was on like constant repeat on DVD, and so your generation probably loves that movie. But when we saw that movie, they promised us, the trailer said Star Wars for the 90s. So we're thinking, this is going to be great. Yeah. And then I'm like, come on, guys, it's Star Wars for the 90s. And we all went, and yeah, we walked out, and everybody's like, fuck you, dude. Fuck you. That was not Star Wars for the 90s.
That's what led to The Phantom Menace. They're like, you know what? I'll show you how to do Star Wars for the 90s.
Well, if that's true, that's still not good. But yeah, actually, dude, yeah. I was in high school at the time, and I brought a date to it. And this was maybe like our 3rd or 4th date. I don't know if we were really like officially dating, but we were certainly like seeing a lot of each other. Mm-hmm. And I said, like, this movie's going to be great. You got to go. And, we go through the movie, and what happens in the movie happens. And I was like, wow, did you like that movie? And she's like, yeah, this is great. Yeah. And I remember like the next day, we were in different in different classes. So, I wasn't in the same like locker hall as her, but I remember going to see her and interrupting a conversation, which was just like, and then the girl had a dick.
Yeah, yeah.
And me thinking, that's great. that's a great conversation. I wonder what they're talking about. I wonder if she was happy that I took her to that movie or not. And
if it was some smack talking there about the movie.
Yeah, it wasn't like, it seemed like a negative conversation. And the result of that conversation was she picked the movies from then on in our relationship. So
it didn't work. That wasn't a successful viewing because it was like you lost trust, basically.
Yeah, like later on when we broke up, I think that was like one of like the top 3 things.
The grievances.
Which was the reason. Yeah, the grievances.
You took me to see The Crying Game.
So a lot of, we saw The Sandlot, which again, that's another one that was probably just on rotation, like in your household. So you like The Sandlot.
Everyone loves The Sandlot.
But we went to see The Sandlot, and it's like, this is a baby movie. This is for little kids.
Yeah.
She liked it. I didn't. She made me see Jack the Bear, which nobody's ever heard of.
I have no idea what that is.
Yeah, it's another, just a bunch of like kind of weepy family dramas. And I wanted to see The Crying Game.
Mm-hmm. Well, you might be vindicated now. Or maybe you're not, because no one remembers it.
Am I? Yeah.
I don't know.
I was trying to get information about this film. Like I was Googling around, not doing like the usual Rotten Tomatoes thing, because it's like 98, 99%. Like it's still very high on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah. But
more importantly, I was trying to reach into a community that I would have had no contact with or not even been aware of in 1992, the gay community. Mm-hmm. And I couldn't get anything. Half the results are like contemporary reviews that are in some archive, a Variety or something like that.
Yeah.
Like, people aren't really talking about it now. And I was trying to get a sense now that we have that gay culture is alive and all over the internet, like what they think. And I saw that it was still really divided. There are really strong opinions on the positive side, and there are people who say that it's a very negative movie from an LGBTQ perspective.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, and I can see that because there's a lot in the movie that's like, well, for one, the twist that we're talking about, I think the way it's done, is kind of, sensationalized, kind of a gimmick or whatever, and it feels bad watching it, I think. But as far as the character goes, like, I think there is a lot of like depth there in the character that I think people can hook into, and I feel like they honor the character a little bit. So I don't know. I feel like I can see how someone could have two different ways of looking at the movie, I think.
That's an interesting perspective. I'm not, just for my own part, I'm not excited that the movie, like you mentioned, like sensationally plays on the white bread cis expectations of like 1992 American filmgoers. However, seeing the movie, it's a unique cinematic experience that you don't get often to see it in a theater, because the way that Neil Jordan crafts the film, the things that he wants to surprise you with and make you react to work. Like when Forrest Whitaker is like wiped out by that APC, like that is a shock.
Yeah.
And I remember people being shook in the theater when that happened. And then people are watching in the middle of the movie, when people are watching the scene between Fergus and Dill, and we learn what we learn. People were again shooketh to the max, and didn't calm down for a while after that. Like, it was another 5 or 10 minutes.
Right.
People were just, upset and sort of talking amongst themselves. And I think that Jordan anticipated that, and I think he smartly lets the movie kind of spin its wheels for a while until we move into that scene, which is a great dramatic irony scene where Dill goes and visits Fergus at the construction site. And so now, like, you've got all these characters who are hooting and hollering and doing the whole construction worker thing. And we understand, like, the depth of what's going on, like what they're ignorant of.
Yeah. So, but it's like the way they reveal that she's a transgender woman. I guess I can see, like, I understand what you're saying, and I think it works to maybe also show what the protagonist is kind of feeling, but it does, like you were saying, it plays to that sort of ignorance a little bit too.
Yeah, like he knows what he is doing at this point. This movie won an Academy Award for Best Original Screenplay.
Okay.
And Jay Davidson was nominated for Best Supporting Actor, which a lot of people argued you kind of ruins the twist of the movie if you're worried about that sort of thing. But it's being his first movie, like, it's quite an honor for him to get Best Supporting Actor nomination, and I think he does a great job in the film. And if you look at like Jordan's output, I'm not sure how many of his films you're familiar with. He directed Interview with a Vampire.
Okay, yeah, I haven't seen that in a long time, but
yeah. And he's also a writer. He didn't write that, of course. He wrote and directed Michael Collins. He is also Irish himself and is a Catholic. So, like, themes of like the IRA and Michael Collins and that sort of thing are important to him.
Okay.
He also did a film called Breakfast on Pluto, which I haven't seen and I really want to see. He wrote and directed it. It is about Cillian Murphy plays a character who is a transgender man who is lives in Ireland basically, and is trying to sort of. It's also kind of wrapped up with the IRA. I consider it like a spiritual sequel to like this film in a lot of ways.
Okay. Well, yeah, I'm not familiar with any of his stuff. Well, actually, I saw Greta.
Oh, you did see? Okay, yeah. Well, how was that?
I at the time I went with my partner Kayla, and I remember it was one they wanted to see, and for some reason I didn't like it. I felt like it was. I also felt like it was a bit sensationalizing certain things that turned me off. And like right after the movie, I was like, well, that was awful. I said that out loud, and but they were like, what are you talking about? That was great. And like I've kind of felt bad about it since then. And then like a week later was thinking about the movie, and I was like, actually, it was all right. So I don't know. There was something about it that gave me such a negative reaction. But I'd be open to going back to that and seeing whatever it was.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
And as far as I can tell, I don't want to speak for him, but as far as I can tell, like Neil Jordan is not gay. He is not, sort of in the LGBTQ community.
Mm-hmm.
But he's making these films, like he's not a Todd Haynes or something like that. But he's making these films that sort of, I'm not sure who the arbiter is, but they sort of butt up against what you think of as queer cinema.
Yeah, for sure. And there's definitely I did like read some stuff of him talking about the movie, and it feels like there's some, there's obviously some lack of understanding a little bit of.
Yeah, but not like it's. But this isn't like a Hallmark film or something like that. Do you know what I mean? Like it's like I feel like he doesn't. There are definitely things he doesn't get, but he's not like totally ignorant.
Yeah,
It seems like he really wants to help out. It's like, hey, let me help. I'll make some of these. It's like, we got a lot of gay actors and directors. We're fine. No, I really want to help.
He's a real Fergus, I mean? It's in his nature.
Yeah, I guess so.
He's here to save all the trans women.
Yeah, or just mess everything up. Yeah.
But like, I read him talking about the character, and he kept saying, I feel maybe it was him, but I kept reading interviews referring to. I'm bad with the names, but the woman in the movie, they kept referring to her as like a gay man, but like as far as I could, and that might be a time thing, but everything I gathered from the movie, like she refers to herself as a woman. Everyone, like she's a woman, you know what I mean? Like
right.
I so that was, well, I kept seeing them, it was about Fergus going and being involved between these two gay men, Forrest Whitaker and her, and I don't see that. That
makes a lot more sense. I never thought of it that way because she is very, like domineering in the relationship, and you can just assume that it's because she's part of his like IRA cell, and we know that Fergus he's kind of moony. He needs somebody to like kick him in the butt to get him going, but if he's like literally like directing her or like writing her as like, no, like you're a dude here. Like you're the one who's sort of, in this relation, you're the man in this relationship.
Oh, wait, you're talking about the IRA woman. I was talking about, God, what's the name? I'm bad with, Dill, I was saying.
Okay.
In the interviews I read, they were saying Dill, Dill is like a gay man, but Dill lives in, is social,
sure,
like, socially a woman, So even I think I saw Neil Jordan say that. I think so. That was where I was coming, like where there's maybe some. I also know the review you're talking about, but that one also came off as kind of transphobic because when they were talking about Dill, they said, like the only good woman is dead or like really a man was what they were saying in that review, and I was like, well, no, Dill's a woman, like, I don't know.
Yeah. So you've got a guy who is not gay directing this film about a protagonist that is discovering he's gay, who is in love with a trans woman, played by an actor who's gay but is not a trans woman, and you got us two idiots trying to talk through this entire thing. So yeah, we're gonna have little bumps like that as we go. But anyway, whether or not you meant it, I feel like I realized something about the Miranda Richardson's character.
Yes. Yeah, there is something. And she's very like, because I do feel like all the other characters have a lot of nuance to them.
Yeah.
Whereas I feel like her character is just like, I'm a stone cold villain. And so maybe there is something to that, but I don't know.
I believe that, Stephen Ree plays the main character, and he is Fergus, and I think he's great in this film, but I've always thought that he's great. I've always thought that he hasn't gotten the spots in Hollywood that he could have, And I'll admit that I don't know, he's got a real particular look about him. He's got a real particular thing he can do. And so maybe doesn't fit into like typical Hollywood fare, but he's really good in this. He's in another, I think Neil Jordan also did the movie, The End of the Affair, that Julianne Moore was in. Yeah. And he is in that as well. And I just think that he's really great.
Yeah. I know nothing about him. I know none of his other movies, but I was like immediately drawn to him. And I think with almost all the characters in the movies where there's these one-on-one scenes with him and Dill or him and Forrest Whitaker's character, like there's all this, great chemistry, acting. Yeah, I would love to see more movies with him in it.
Forrest Whitaker, just talking about him, is really great in this too for the short time that he's in it. And I never know. There's a lot of things that you don't notice when you're watching the movie for the first time. When I saw it this time, of course, and the credits end with "and starring Forrest Whitaker," I'm like, oh, he's gonna die. Like he's in about maybe 30 minutes of this movie, but he's arguably one of the most famous people in the movie, so he gets like a very special credit at the end. And even if you hadn't seen the movie, if you know like how credits work, you're like, oh, I don't think this guy's not gonna make it out of this situation.
Yeah, okay. I didn't think about that. I was really confused at first, though. Like I was maybe in my own head about it because I was like, is the movie about this kidnapping? That is a movie right there on its own. Yeah. But I was like, they're doing all the like beats I would sort of expect from like you befriend your kidnappee or whatever.
Yeah.
But it was happening so fast that I was like, what is going on? Like, what is this movie? And then I'm looking at the cover and it's got the woman on there. I'm like, right. She's not even like, I don't even think she's like a main character of this, but I was so confused.
In the Mia Wallace hair 2 years before Pulp Fiction.
Yeah, I was like, oh, this is like, I looked at the cover because it was not a great quality picture on my library DVD case. And I was like, Uma Thurman's in this movie?
Yeah,
okay.
Right, yeah. Yeah, that first part, that's something that I really like. I think the first part of the movie is really strong. I think the middle act is really strong, and then the ending is kind of just happens, and I'm not sure that it's really great. But that first part of the movie is like almost like a one act, like in itself, like a Harold Pinter play or something like that, where these two, the hostage taker and the hostage, sort of get closer and sort of identify with each other. And when you think about the fact that Forrest Whitaker, who is fairly young at this point, but he's been doing this for a while. He's acting with a bag on his head almost the entire time. And he just does it like a really great job. And I think he presents in his characterization a character that is not as straightforward as just, a British soldier. Like we get that there's a sensitivity to him. We get that he has different like layers there. And you think, oh man, he gets run over. We're not going to learn anything about this guy. But then, of course, the movie moves on, and we learn that there was a bunch of things that we didn't know about this guy.
Yeah, it turns out we're gonna like explore him posthumously, and it works really well, I think. Yeah, and I agree with you. That beginning part, like, is a standalone story. It is good as a story. You could stop watching the movie there and be like, "That's an interesting short film,"
Yeah. Why didn't those guys watch where they were going? Yeah. There's a couple parts in the movie, I was talking before about the kind of theatricality that Jordan brings to this particular production, and there's a couple parts that I think are unintentionally funny. Even in any drama, in the tersest drama, I was mentioning Pinter before, like you need to have like moments of release. But I'm not sure you necessarily want... what I'm saying is, I don't know if the filmmaker wanted the releases that he got.
Okay, what are you thinking?
There is this, so we see Fergus escape to England after the raid and Jodie's kill. And we see this continuing repetitive reverie of his where Jodie is bowling, he's throwing this cricket ball.
Yeah.
And we see that image over and over and we don't really know what to make of it. And I don't think Fergus knows what to make of it. And then after the quote unquote twist happens in the film, and Fergus sort of retreats back to his apartment, we see Jodie again, but instead he just kind of walks out and he's kind of like throwing the ball up and down. and he's got this look on his face like,
okay.
And
I didn't think about that.
That killed in the theater. Like it was, if the intention was to be like, I guess you don't know everything about me, that totally killed.
Wow.
Also at the end, so unintentional music choices. At the beginning, it's When a Man Loves a Woman is playing as we're panning over and looking at the funfair. At the end, Stand By Your Man plays, and that got a huge laugh in the theater that I was in. And I'm not sure.
Oh, no. Yeah.
It's kind of on you for picking a song like that, but is that all that's in your, like, are you trying to be a merry prankster with your music choices?
I don't think so.
Is your jukebox just real limited like White Man?
I think it's supposed to be the other way around with that one, but
yeah.
Now that I get it. I get it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's just things like that make you go like, I think that there is an argument for adding this film to like the LGBTQ plus canon of films, but you're trying real hard to get out of it. Like you keep doing these things that are like, well, why would you do that? Like you keep calling attention to
right.
You're sort of self-conscious about it.
Right. I mean, it's, regardless, I guess it's still worth a discussion, even if it wasn't completely successful in what it's going for,
Yeah.
I mean, so you mentioned the ending being kind of weak, and also when you were talking about him throwing the cricket or whatever that you do in cricket, I'm not quite sure.
Yeah, right.
But just the constant visions of him and the ending, it all makes me think about also, I guess, two ways you could interpret the movie, and I could see how you could get a different, be mad at it or not, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So there's is Fergus doing this out of some sort of guilt that he has? And, they're talking about the scorpion story. Is it, I'm a good person, I'm trying to make right for my sins, which seems kind of, I guess cis guilt. I don't know how to interpret it. But it's kind of messed up.
I think I see where you're going. I think that we have to just take it at face value because we've already talked about Neil Jordan and trying to help out, and being a straight guy, but we just have to judge the movie with what was made. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, but it sort of seems like that regardless. But I guess the other way I thought about it is like that. The face value, I guess, interpretation is like he does fall in love with Dill, and he would, do that for her in the end of the movie.
Yeah,
like he did.
I agree. I think that he is.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I think so. And I was just about to ask you that actually, because like in 1992 when I saw this movie and I was a straight, white teenager in high school, who knew no gay people, or actually that's totally not true. I didn't know I knew any gay people.
Okay.
I just thought he's doing the right thing. And the movie doesn't help with this because the movie really, I really do think that Jay Davidson did a great job for this being his first role, but the movie kind of really abandons him in the third act. And, because Dill gets drunk and goes nuts, and we understand this character has had trauma in her past, but it doesn't leave her anywhere to go. Like it's such a thriller cliche that like, oh, somebody's got a gun at the end, you know what I mean? And so it kind of abandons her character a little in the end. But I just figured that Fergus was a guy who he thought he was being sold a bill of goods. It turned out to be not what it was, but he's still a good guy. We know that that's in his nature, and so he is helping out, Dill out of this situation, and he pays a price, but he's willing to pay it because he's a good guy and he cares about Dill as a friend. But as an adult who's been through a lot more than that, what we're talking about here is the nature, right?
Yeah.
His nature is Fergus is gay. That's what we're talking about, right?
Okay. Yeah. I mean, well, so
not only is he a good person who doesn't want to like shoot a guy with a bag on his head, but also he is somebody who is attracted not only to women, but also men, as he's discovering.
Yeah. Well, I was viewing it more as he maybe they definitely weren't considering this, but he was, considering that or realizing that, I guess that he likes trans women, at least, not just
right. Yeah.
So more, I guess, more specific than gay, like that he's still fighting it kind of at the end. He's still uncomfortable by being called honey and stuff like that. But
I read a stupid review that it was just some straight guy doing his best, just like Neil Jordan, but he was like, and the perspex glass that he's behind is, that's the box that he's in, but he can see through it, and someday he'll be able to get past it or whatever. It's like, okay, yeah, all right. Clumsy metaphor, but I guess I don't disagree.
Yeah. I guess I see it more as him sort like coming to terms with a trans woman's identity and definitely struggling to respect it, but
yeah,
that's what I got out of it. And it's not he's not perfect, which is the point. That's what I got out of it. It's in my nature is that maybe this story it's not so clear cut, you know what I mean? Like this guy is not a toad or a scorpion. He's he's a human being, I guess.
Interesting.
Because even when she pulls the gun, this comes after him shaving her head.
Yes.
Going, I will just make you look like a man by cutting your hair, which
this is a disguise. There's no subtext here. I'm not rebelling against right.
And it, regardless of the intent there, I imagine that's kind of that's a fucked up thing to do.
It's traumatic. Yeah,
it's traumatic for sure. And then he's telling her while she's completely fucked up what he, his whole story actually.
Yeah.
And I just thought, there's a bit more to it than he's just a good guy, because I think the whole basis of him coming there and not telling her even before it's revealed that she's trans, it's like, this is weird. Why aren't you this? Even if that wasn't an element, it's like, there's no way this ends well,
Yeah. There's a thing that happens a lot now that people are more I'm just so woke is such a cliche. I guess I don't know what else to say. That people are more aware of injustice and are more active. We are on the lookout for injustice, where people criticize films who themselves are totally against injustice, but are portraying injustices for the purpose of, for a didactic purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I hate it. I see this a lot in like young people who are really like excited about being woke, and they criticize movies and they don't realize that movie is on your side. But here's the thing. Characters aren't people. So things can happen to characters and it can be horrible, and it's horrible to be didactic, to be a teachable sort of thing. And that's one of the things that I like about some of the things that happen in this film, even though, cutting her hair, that it's horrible.
Yeah.
I like that it's got like this plausible excuse, but it's really like, it's metaphorical for like the struggle that he's going through. I think that that's a really, it's a really stark and it's a really a creative sort of way to express that. And a guy like Fergus, who is Irish Catholic and grew up what we can assume is, like poor in Ireland, he has no context for anything that's happening. And he goes to see Dill sing, on the karaoke night or whatever at that bar. And he's watching her and she's in this like glittery dress, and it's all kind of shabby, but yet it has like this sort of appeal to it. It's still sort of kind of cool and sexy. And the director plays this really straight, so to speak, in that once Fergus knows what he knows, he runs out of the thing and he goes to the bar the next night to try to apologize to Dill, and it's like Nazi commandant hat, and it's like every gay stereotype he seems like he's like fighting through to get to her. Yeah. But in the scenes in the bar before that, if you just look in the margins, you can tell, oh, this is a gay bar, or at least this is a bar that is frequented by both straight and gay people. But it's well done. It's like subtle enough that the audience might not pick up, and Fergus definitely doesn't understand. It's like that. It's not a great movie. Wouldn't recommend anybody to go to Kevin Smith movies for like nuanced depictions of gay people. But it's that moment in Chasing Amy where Ben Affleck sees Joey Lauren Adams kiss a girl, and then he looks around and it's like, oh, there's a bunch of short-haired girls kissing. Oh, okay, now I get it.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's I don't know, just someone who's he's going from one place to another, and like sometimes with people with straight cisgender people, like stuff like that will just hit you like a ton of bricks, and eventually change who you are. Like I think we don't see the full outcome of what's happening to him, or like what he's experiencing, but I almost like that a lot more. That it's I read a review where it was mad that he wasn't like nice about this stuff, but it's like that's what you were saying, like that's what would that's how he would react, that's how someone like that would react, and it's kind of the point.
Yeah,
they're talking about him being disgusted when he found out, but it's like yeah, I don't know, like that struck me as like good in the story, not like good that happens, but good to show that like even someone like that can, it's like they still love this person, and they are realizing like, oh, the world isn't exactly how I thought it was, I guess.
Yeah, and then even as I said that, I have some complaints that I think his like nauseated reaction was maybe a little bit too much or over the top. I mean, he hits her. Do you know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
Like, I can see somebody being shocked at not being in the situation they thought they were, and then when the other person tries to press it, just strikes out like physically. But I mean, it kind of goes into like just stereotype over.
Yeah,
what you would expect. Yeah,
the movie does, again, like with that whole reveal, like the way they do it, it does.
Neil, what are you doing? Come on.
Yeah.
But that's what's so great about the story and the character is that like he immediately goes back to her, and I just love the exchange of for Stephen Free, who I think is a great actor, but is definitely of like the stone-faced school, to see him go back to her, not because out of obligation, like really being sorry. And then she's like needling him about like, oh, do you like me, or do you want to be with me? He's like, I guess maybe we'll see. Like he's just trying to work all this stuff out in his head because this is somewhere he's never been before. So okay. So the Scorpion and the Frog. Does this movie, is it saying that you are the Scorpion, you really can't change your nature, or is it sort of putting that up there for criticism and ridicule, saying that's just a story? I mean, you can.
Yeah, that's where I'm at with it, is trying to the positive interpretation that I wanted to take away from it, because I did enjoy the movie, was that story is sort of just a story, but I guess the movie does lean towards being like, with the hostage situation in the beginning, all the way until the end, just like, you're doing these bad things, but you're actually a good guy. I don't know.
Okay.
That's how I felt about it, is that, like, regardless of however he felt about Dill, he mostly went back to her because of guilt, like, now I'm not saying that for sure. I'm saying that's maybe in it something you could pull out of it. I don't know.
Yeah. Did you? I mean, he dresses her in Jodie's old clothes, so I think that there is a suggestion of like unresolved feelings for Jodie that can never be resolved now too.
Right. Well, and then there's also when he is confessing to her.
Yeah.
He like. I believe he knows.
He's great. Jay Davidson is great in that scene too, because it's like, oh, you kill him, you're gonna kill me. It's like, it's just really funny.
Yeah, doing the finger guns or whatever.
Yeah.
But like he obviously has to know. He can't be stupid enough to like think that this is going to get across at all, and you could get an actual response or whatever from it. But at the same time, he's going like, aren't you mad at me? Like, don't you want to kill me? And it's like,
yeah,
it's like, I don't know. That seems like even a very self-serving moment for him too,
Well, yeah, I mean, he's looking for punishment. He's looking for, to be retributed against. And yeah.
But still in a way where I feel like he knows he can't actually get the punishment, because she's too screwed up to do anything.
Yeah. And she's somewhat passive too, as a character and a person at this point. There is, just before we wrap up here, there is a lot of talent in this movie.
We're going to talk about Dave?
Yeah.
Is that his name? I can remember his name, but I can't remember the IRA female soldier name.
Yeah, Miranda Richardson is been in a lot of stuff. She's great. Jim Broadbent, who has been in a ton of stuff and doesn't look anything like he did in this movie as the bartender, is in it as well. Golden Globe winning actor. And then, of course, Ralph Brown is Dave. And Ralph Brown is like one of those actors he's kind of like a cult movie actor guy. Did you ever see With Nail and I?
Oh, I've heard of this. I've never seen it.
You should. He is in that. He's in Alien 3.
Okay.
He's in Pirate Radio, or The Boat That Rocked, I think they called it over here. And then he's in Wayne's World 2. He's the Del Rhodey, Del Preston, the famous roadie who talks about like Ozzy wouldn't go on stage without a brandy snifter full of brown M&Ms, little sweet shop. Yeah.
Okay. That's great. That was a great role.
Yeah. And he was Rick Ollie in The Phantom Menace. The guy that they told, speaking of promises, they told us was going to be the new Han Solo. And he's just a guy who just sits in the ship and goes, well, they're attacking.
I just watched this movie and I don't remember.
He's the slightly balding guy that flies the Flight of the Navigator ship, Padme's ship, as they leave Naboo and head to Tatooine. Yeah,
I remember liking the crew in general of that ship. So he's probably
his big lines are, "We lost the shields," and then there's the whole thing where R2 goes out and like twists the thing, and he's like, "Shields are back." Like that's basically all he says in the film.
Thankless role for sure.
Yeah. Well thankless audience member. We were promised so much in like the lead up to Phantom Menace, all the promotional stuff, and they released that music video, the Duel of the Fates. It's like, oh, this is going to be great, and then we got what we got.
Yeah, they dropped the ball. I thought you were going to mention him as the like comic relief of this movie, even though he does some bad stuff. He's kind of funny a lot in this movie with his little tracksuit and stuff.
Yeah, and it's it's weird. I guess I don't know if there's a commentary being made about the difference between Ireland or where Fergus is from, and then Spitalfields in East London where he ends up. But he's the only person who doesn't know about Dill, like he asks Dill if her coworkers know, but you get the impression that they do. Like everybody knows.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, and that I kind of like it just because it is like it does show Dill briefly as like living a somewhat conventional life, that, and not just the like sad trans role that you usually see in these kind of movies,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
It's like you get I think a more realistic human portrayal. There's obviously awful sad things that happen, but you also see like they have a pretty decent job and social life, like you're not just seeing the Dave slapping her around constantly,
Yeah, and that kind of gets merged with the woman in trouble role that you would see in a lot of these noirish or like urban crime type films. Dill
in fact,
ends up kind of being that too.
They sort of solve the Dave issue pretty quickly.
That gets solved.
Actually.
Yeah, that gets solved. Really, it's not like then Dave shows up with a gun in the third act. No, like Dave's out of there. That's it.
They're like, oh, is Dave following us? And it's like, no, it's the IRA.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I like that scene where she's like, he's down there. He'll be real mad if you like ask me to go out tomorrow night. And then if you kiss me, oh boy, he'll be over the roof.
He's just down there like all grouchy and like, yeah, and he won't leave. It's supposed to be scary, I think, but it was funny.
I think we hit just about everything that we could for this film. I hadn't seen, like I said, I hadn't seen this since I saw it, so it's been like 25 years. But watching it this time, I was like, oh no, I remember that. I remember that. I think I remember just about everything that happened. So it's I think it's a simple movie, but I think it's entertaining and gives you something to think about. I just wish that I had been more perceptive when I saw it way back in the day.
Yeah, this is my first time, obviously, and I still, I liked what it had going for it, regardless of maybe what was intended or not. I loved it.
Well, that's it for The Crying Game. We'll take a break for a word from our sponsors, and we'll be back with more BackTrekking. How would you describe Just Enough Trope? We are the Just Enough Trope podcast. I'm your host, Ka1iban, joined as always by my co-host.
Hi, I'm Mika and Hannah.
Oh no, does this mean they can hear all the things I yell at the TV during Downton Abbey?
Why did you do that?
How do you plead?
Let the game begin.
Yeah, check these fresh moves. Oh!
Don't shoot man in face.
This isn't the Save Gotham fundraiser.
It's the Chill Family Reunion.
Master Yoda assigned a Padawan to this bold Jedi.
I think it's pronounced Padawan.
Oh, Padawan, excuse me.
Hey, it's getting late. I think Ralph's going to want his motorcycle back.
Go check out the pictures of Jean Grey.
I am freaking getting old.
Yeah, I noticed the life clock was blinking in your hand.
Get out of here, Wilson. Go fight the Teen Titans or something.
I'm unkillable, not unwoundable.
You like Sailor Moon, right? Why don't you sail on this
Oh, wow.
Just Enough Trope. News, reviews, and geek fondue. Every Monday on the Just Enough Trope podcast network.
Loving me never have a say you so sorry.
What?
All right, we're back, and it's time to talk about the Trek side of the equation. The citizens of the Federation are good people at heart. They accept other people. They are about personal freedom. It's really like a fun social anarchy, basically, in the best way. But what happens when they run into a civilization that is all about control while espousing being all about collectivism and self-improvement? That's the Borg, everybody. The Federation versus the Borg. And Voyager, even though they are far from the Federation, still has to deal with the Borg, which they do in the Voyager episodes Scorpion Part 1 and 2.
In the heart of darkness.
My God.
In the eye of the enemy.
More bodies. Dozens of them dead.
Evil has a brand new face.
Who could do this to the Borg?
Their only hope is the unthinkable.
What if I made an appeal to the devil?
An alliance with the Borg?
Could this be the voyage of the damned?
We're making a fatal mistake.
On the next Star Trek Voyager. At death's door.
We're going to war.
The crew must make a deal with the devil.
We have an alliance, do we not?
At the gates of hell.
They said your galaxy will be purged.
Keep your friends close.
We will not be assimilated.
And your enemies closer.
This alliance is terminated. Resistance is futile.
On the next Star Trek Voyager.
A very different interpretation, I think, of this Scorpion story. Or maybe just the opposite interpretation.
There is, and we're going to talk about it right now, there is a lot going on in this episode.
Oh, yeah.
Towards that. You think that Chakotay is like, let me tell you this story about I think it's a fox or whatever, a fox and a scorpion. And you think that the payoff is when 7 of 9, adjunct tertiary of Unimatrix, whatever, sort of betrays them at the end. But there are things going on all throughout these 2 episodes that are leading to the idea of somebody acting according to their nature, no matter what they're told or necessarily ordered to do.
Okay, yeah, that's true. In my mind, I was only going with a very specific view of it, but I'm already, my mind is already shattered.
This is such it's such an first of all, I'll spoil my review. This is a great pair of episodes.
Yeah.
And I think it really would have, damn, this like hour-long, TV show environment, like it really would have been like a great 90-minute sort of feature length type situation. But it's funny that its origins are sort of murky, and it was tough to get it to the screen because they had originally planned for the do you remember the Year of Hell storyline?
Yes, yeah.
The two-parter? Yeah.
Yes.
They originally wanted the Year of Hell two-parter to be the end of the third season and the beginning of the fourth. But the impending cast changes that were coming up forced them to sort of rethink that. And so they slid this up, to this spot and then pushed Year of Hell back. So in midway through the third season, there's an episode where Kes is traveling back through her own timeline, and she mentions the Krenim and the Year of Hell. And that was like the setup for what was supposed to be the finale, but instead we got Scorpion. And then the Year of Hell does happen, but nobody ever mentions that Kes mentioned it. Like, we just have to forget about that.
Oh, weird.
Kes is gone, yeah.
Oh, that's a bummer. That bothers me now.
But this does come at, I think, at a great place in Voyager's storyline, because this is like, I guess like what, halfway through the third season would be the midpoint of 7 seasons. So this is at the end of the third season, but it's really like kind of the midpoint of the show. Like, this is where we've had trouble, we've had problems, we've tried to cope with and get used to the idea that this trip might take a long time. But when we run into Borg space, it's like, okay, like, this is it. I've promised you hardship, I've promised you challenges on the way back home, and this is where it starts.
Yeah, and it does a really good job of making you feel that. And that, especially for me, who has only seen select Voyager episodes, and just kind of jumping in. Like if I jump into Best of Both Worlds, for example, I just kind of always have a vibe of where it's at in the show. Yeah. And you describing that for Voyager to me now, I go, okay, I felt that way, and I didn't actually know that before watching it. Mm-hmm. So it's really effective in getting that over.
Well, speaking of Best of Both Worlds and its placement, I mean, this is Voyager's Best of Both Worlds, really.
Yeah, exactly. That's a great
in the same way that Best of Both Worlds sort of dropped the gauntlet, is like, this is where we're going now. Like, we're taking it up a notch.
Yeah, especially in this, where it's like, we have brought aboard a new character.
Yeah, no kidding.
That doesn't happen a lot in Star Trek.
Well, if it happens around this time. I have this like theory about the third season is where Trek shows really begin to take off, and then the fourth season is where they change the game. Do you know what I mean? So like in DS9, that's when Worf comes on board.
Mm-hmm. Now you're talking my language.
Yeah, right. And the Dominion War is brewing, but now we've also got the Klingons in the mix, and of course they'll be very important going forward for the rest of DS9. TNG, we've got Best of Both Worlds, obviously. It leads me to ask, what would the fourth season? Okay, so if the end of the third season of the original series hadn't been the end of the series, and also hadn't been Turnabout Intruder, which is the worst episode of the show, what would have been the cool cliffhanger for season 3 of TOS, and then what would we have seen in the fourth season of TOS?
Ooh, wow, that's probably... Because I feel like they got into bringing some big stuff back in the movies, like with Khan and whatnot.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Maybe we'd have. I don't know if Khan would carry a show like that back in the day, like as a long. They wouldn't do arcs, but
yeah. Well, they did. They had like one or they had one or two like sequel episodes. There was a Mud sequel episode. And Ricardo Montalban was still a big deal back then. Like I think if you had brought him back like a year or two later for a sequel series or episode, I think people would have responded to that.
That's true. Yeah, maybe some of the storylines they did in the animated series. I don't know anything about it.
Began as scripts, for Star Trek, so that's possible. The funny thing about that, you know what? That's okay. You know what? I'm in now because I was just about to say I think that there would have been some real challenge to the power of the Federation, much how in Enterprise, the series begins with a promise of a challenge to the Federation's power, but it doesn't really start to pick up until third season and fourth season.
Okay, yeah.
And I think that you would have seen, I don't know, maybe Baylock from the first Federation comes back, or maybe the Tholians become a bigger problem.
Yeah.
So when I was thinking about the animated series, there's a lot of animated series episodes where they're just talking to some weird guy this week, a godlike alien. They're never going to come back here. But there is a very specific episode where they face, the Zinti or whatever, like the
not the Zindi.
No.
Okay.
I don't. It's one of those things where it's like a TZ something or other. But they're like these cat-like aliens.
Oh, I've seen that. Okay.
Yeah, they were created by Larry Niven, and they're actually like in his Known Space series. So I'm not sure like how the rights would work here, but they have like their own empire, and they're like this kind of dangerous foe. Maybe we would have gotten to like a big deal with them, and then that would have shaped the fourth season of the original series.
Okay.
Although you're right.
That'd be kind of cool.
It was all about the big reset back then. They barely ever did any kind of ongoing plot lines, which is weird because you had like soap operas and stuff like that.
Yeah, maybe it was just with that type of show, you just want to hook them in real quick.
Marshall Dillon's just killing some new idiot in a cowboy hat every single week.
I think with the movies, they kept doing like Kirk being like, I gotta get back in the saddle. I can't take this anymore. Like maybe they could have done a lot of, you don't need an arc to do this, but maybe they could have done a lot of episodes about like the opposite, where it's like, maybe I need to retire. Maybe I gotta call it quits. This is run. They had some of that. He's like, I'm in love. I need to be in love.
I met this woman named Carol. She's perfect. Yeah.
Yeah. So then you flip it, and it would still fit. The movies would still fit if he, did step down.
Such a modern fan. How do we fit this into canon? I don't know. I don't know about all these weird things. Every conversation I have about Voyager is always tinged with this feeling of like what could have been.
Okay.
Like they did this, and if they'd only ... And something that I really love about this episode is that it really explores the idea that they have to make hard decisions.
Yes, 100%.
As the only Federation ship out here, and also that's going to mean that they need to give orders that are tough to give, and people will have to decide whether they want to follow those orders. And are those people Federation people who are trained to follow the chain of command and be disciplined, or are they people who have got to where they are and succeeded by doing their own thing? Mm-hmm. And the way that those styles clash. And unfortunately, in your day-to-day, the holy reset sort of structure of a Trek show, you rarely get to explore that as much as I would have liked to see them do in Voyager.
And because it's like even taking into account, stuff that could have been done better leading up to that. I think they make do, but then they overachieve. You know what I mean? Like, because I could totally see like how if there had been more, I feel like there was never emphasis on a lot of stuff people wanted in the early seasons, but I still feel like they could have laid the groundwork, I guess, a little bit better. But even if they hadn't, like, they made the best of it and made it work. Yeah.
Yeah. Like your typical day on Voyager, we start off and Neelix is serving scrambled eggs to everybody or whatever.
Right.
And then we just get into whatever the plot is. But I feel like this episode, which is written by, the same people that write a lot of them. I think this is Braga and Manosky. It seems like they're going out of their way to sort of remind you of what the situation is like. This very early in the first episode, they set up Janeway's like reliance on Chakotay, how important he's become. She's somebody who would do everything. She'd do the whole thing herself if she could, but she can't. And so she, relies on him. They specifically have her call out that it's like, I didn't even know your name a couple years ago, and now you've just helped me through every day of this, and I couldn't do it without you. And they spend a lot of time in these initial sort of encounters with the Borg, and even the early encounter with the bioships and stuff. They spend all this time making our crew look smart. We know our tools. We understand things. B'Elanna is locking onto people's skeletons and beaming them out. It's like, what? And we even set up like
that's
if you
funny, but I like it.
I know. What if somebody had like a screws or a hip replacement or something like that? Does that come too? And then if you didn't know that Kes has telepathic powers, here you go. We set this up because that's going to be important, not just for this storyline, but for the future of the character going forward. And then, of course, into all of that, we drop the Borg.
Yeah, and then new things on top of it. And they're constantly learning not just new things about the Borg, really, but new things about a new species. And it's never too much, It's all... Yeah. It all flows,
For being the episode that introduces the character of 709, who would go on to be very important in Voyager, and arguably in the Trek franchise as a whole, this is not an episode about 709. Like,
no.
she is just the guest star, like, bad guy of the week for basically the entire episode until the end when she's lying in sickbay.
It's great, though. It plants the seeds, and we get... All we need is one line of... Or not even one line, but I guess a line in a scene of, you were a human, and it's like, boom, we know what's up there.
Yeah, which is funny to think about. They, when they make this deal, and I forgot. It's an episode with the Borg. It's an episode with a brand new species that has 100 times as much DNA as us and comes from fluid-filled space dimension. Oh, and also Leonardo da Vinci's in this episode. It's just something that just like gets forgotten, I think. But yeah, like as Janeway retreats to the holodeck and Da Vinci's workshop to sort of think over this conundrum, she comes up with this idea of this deal with the devil, and they make this deal, and almost immediately, the Borg keep trying to kind of get out of it, like in their own sort of like legalese way. Yeah. Because they're like, okay, don't assimilate us. And they're like, fine. They grab them. What are you doing? We don't want to be assimilated. Oh, we're going to give you this implant so we can all talk with our brains together. And we're like, we don't want that either. And she brings up, like, what about something like Locutus? Well, when you say that, remember, Locutus was Jean-Luc. You didn't know that the Borg had, like, talky humans that they keep in storage for this moment, which I'm just assuming that that's what 7 of 9 is. Like, she's a diplomatic unit or something like that. Was she like offering herself? Was she offering like a member of her crew to be the bridge between the Borg and Voyager?
I just assumed since they could communicate with the Borg, I guess they wouldn't really need a person there though, because they were talking to them. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, that's true, but they weren't really getting anywhere. It was all these like barked commands and stuff. And so we get.
Okay, yeah.
So they deploy 7 of 9, who I'm just assuming, like, every once in a while the Borg must find a race that they either can assimilate or for some unknown reason they need to talk to a while before they assimilate. And that example that we see is in Best of Both Worlds when they use Jean-Luc Picard to say... and you have to wonder why I'm assuming they do it because the Borg aren't dumb. Like, they think they can win this fight, but it'd be great to, like, have a bunch of ships left when you win the fight. So instead they make Picard say, hey, why not just give up? It's like Howard says in Uncut Gems. You want to win by 1 or you want to win by 30 points?
There you go.
Yeah. So they just have somebody like 7 of 9 lying around who happens to be human.
Maybe after it didn't work with Picard, they're like, well, we got another human in store,
Yeah, right, yeah. Some idiots flew out to the Delta Quadrant a long time ago.
From Janeway's perspective, I have to just think it's like, you've got to have something that can talk to us, I think it's a fair assumption that you could rig up a human.
I love the contradiction of how determined and how hard she is, but at the same time, she calls it a deal with the devil or an appeal to the devil, but she's doing this thinking, I know we can do this. I know that we can cooperate with them. Mm-hmm. And it isn't necessarily like a milk of human kindness, like she has faith in the Borg type thing. She has faith in her own crew. And the fact that the Federation has negotiated its way out of worse things than this. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, she really does think if we have a plan, if we stick to this plan, we've got this thing, they need it, and if we treat them respectfully and everybody follows the plan, we're going to get out of this. And I just love the fact that she does all that while threatening to self-destruct her ship, threatening to delete the doctor, basically killing one of her crew members and also taking, like, the solution with it.
Yeah. There was something about her character that I guess because I've not gone too far into Voyager, it's like stuff that it hasn't stuck with me. But this time, that really stuck out was what you said earlier. She would do all this alone if she could. Like, she will keep pushing through, almost no matter what, and is determined to do whatever. And, for better or for worse, it feels like, or, like whether you think it's right or not. And I think that ends up being a storyline even when after they have 7 of 9 a little bit in the follow-up episode to this. So
yeah,
I dug it. Yeah, I liked it a lot.
100% that CO for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes where I thought like maybe they should show someone like more than Chakotay, but like the doctor didn't seem too bothered by it. That he might be deleted. He was just like, well, I hope that doesn't happen. Like,
yeah, right.
I don't know. That's my only like kind of gripe a little bit with Voyager. Sometimes it's like, I feel like someone would be upset by this.
Well, somebody is.
I guess. Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, and that is Chakotay, who I like the fact that when she gives her plan to everybody, because first of all, I love how they pull into Borg space. There's Borg everywhere. And they're like, we found this one spot where there's no Borg. That's probably safe, right?
Yeah.
It's like, no. Is it maybe that the Borg are scared to go there? And that's what it is. But then she lays out her plan and she goes, here's what we'll do. We'll do this thing. We'll do this exchange. They'll escort us through. We've got it. And you can see, like, everybody in the room is like, all right, boss, that doesn't seem great. And as soon as they leave, Chakotay's immediately like, this is not going to work. You can't trust them. Here's a little story about a scorpion and a fox. And I don't think it's going to work. And he still does it, which is an important milestone because he's the guy who quit Starfleet, but he respects the idea of the chain of command. But I also love the fact that they're literally sedating her for surgery. And she's like, keep the alliance together. And he's like, okay. And then almost immediately after that, he's like, all right, we're breaking this alliance. Shoot those guys out of an airlock.
Yeah.
Let's get out of here. Yeah.
That was good. Yeah, that was great.
And it's so fascinating because humans will argue endlessly that it's important that they all have free will, that they all have a voice and a say in it, while 7 of 9 mocks them for that. And yet the second the commander goes down, the second in command is like, no, I have a different idea. And we start to see like the disadvantages and the drawbacks of individualism.
Yeah. And maybe not in this episode, but I feel like through sometimes with their contact with the Borg or 7 of 9, like there's almost the contradictions or whatever. Like, we say this is good, but then we don't always stick to that, I guess.
Yeah.
Like I'm thinking with 7 of 9, bringing on her on board. This doesn't happen in this episode, but they almost like decide for her, like, you're going to be human again. Like,
yeah,
maybe that's a whole nother rabbit hole to go down though.
Well, it is. I love Janeway, and I'm razor's edge from just declaring that she's my favorite captain, but she makes a series of decisions. Well, they're not a series because these episodes are mostly unconnected, but she makes a number of decisions that Picard always weaseled his way out of.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, Kirk rolls in, he talks your computer to death, he destroys your snake god or whatever, and we just assume that I guess you're going to be okay. And there's a lot of decisions that Picard's like, I really hope that we don't have to make this decision.
Yeah.
And then something usually happens where it's like, thank God we didn't have to do that. Janeway has to do that. A lot of times she ends up having to make that decision. And that's one of these decisions. I mean, clearly this, I was going to call her a woman. Clearly this Borg does not want to become human, wants to go back to the Borg, but that is not an option. And so forget medical proxy, forget the sovereignty of her own body. the decision is she dies or we'll turn her back to human and do it.
Right.
And she never, I don't know if you're familiar with the episode Tuvix at all, but.
yeah, I'm familiar a little bit.
Okay. She never really agonizes over that decision the way that she does Tuvix. And I think part of it is, we have the meta knowledge as viewers that this is the new character with the tight booty that we're going to see for the next 3 years.
Yeah.
So we don't necessarily question it as an audience, but I wish they'd taken it the whole way and had her really be like, I don't know if this is the right thing to do. We have clearly caused a lot of distress for this person. We have basically birthed a baby that we're going to have to take care of. And she does take care of her over the next 3 years. But at that moment, maybe there's too much stuff going on, but at that moment, it's never, the weight of the decision is never really is weighed all that much.
That's mine. Yeah. My issue is cause I do believe, I'm sold that Janeway would make that decision. And, while it's wrong or whatever, I believe as a character she would make that, and it's complicated, but then it's the next 7 of 9 episode she's like, this is where the consequence doesn't come in, where 7 of 9's okay, teach me or whatever, I want you to like me, Janeway, and it's 7 of 9 should be mad at her for the rest of the series, you know what I mean? Yeah. I'm okay with the decision, but they immediately made the character be now I'm your mentor. It's there should have been another character she connects with or something, you know what I mean? Finds her humanity or whatever, but Janeway, I feel never has to make up for it.
She can talk to the doctor or Naomi Wildman, but whenever she sees the captain, it's just no, forget it.
Yeah, but conflict in Star Trek is
See, that would have worked because, behind the scenes, famously, Kate Mulgrew was not excited about the addition of Jerry Ryan to the show.
Oh.
And yet she is such a fucking professional, as is Jerry Ryan, that you never see that in any of their scenes, but they hated each other. Yeah.
Wow. Well, they both are killing it, so.
And even after Janeway makes that decision, which I think is totally the Janeway decision to make, you've got somebody like Chakotay who, if Janeway didn't recover or was still recovering, Chakotay might have been like, okay, prepare a torpedo tube and bye-bye 7 or 9. Just get rid of her, too.
Yeah, no, totally.
Because he just flushes those other guys. She survives by chance. He blows everybody out of there and does a little Borg mini genocide. And then they're like, oh, one Borg survived. It's the one who had her name in the credits.
Yeah, and Chakotay, they only briefly mention it, but they talk about how he was a Borg, connected to the collective.
Right.
I thought that was something they could have played up a little bit more, but it was effective what they did, and I guess it made their solution a better surprise, a better twist.
Yeah, the episode where that happens to him is not very good.
No, I actually remember that one a little bit, and I just remember thinking oh, this is what they're gonna do with the Borg. Okay.
Yeah, they'd had that, and then they had at the end of, I think, another Chakotay episode where they're on this planet, and it has nothing to do with the Borg, and then the last 20 seconds, they're on the planet, and Janeway's like, what did you want me to see? We found something in our scans. And they pull back this thing, and it's a Borg. And they're like, oh, no. And that credits. That's it. So it's okay, I guess the Borg are going to show up pretty soon.
Well, I guess it's good that... this is, I think it's the first big Borg episode in Voyager, and they immediately, they subvert your expectations.
In the teaser, yeah.
Oh yeah, they immediately blow everything up,
Yeah.
And they're like, you want to know about the Borg? Well, guess what? You're learning about species something numbers.
Not aliens, not Geiger aliens. 8472. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I love, goddamn Minosky. He's got 47 in there. 8472.
Yeah.
What do you think of Species 8472?
I think the last time I went through the select episodes of Voyager, I didn't like it, but I was sold on this actually. I love it. I always prefer practical looking aliens and special effects in Star Trek, but I felt like it was worth making an exception for these guys.
Yeah.
Partially because it sold how they're from a totally other dimension or whatever.
Right.
Their space is completely different. It works for this period of time as far as special effects goes, and it's also just getting away from stuff that looks like humans.
Yeah, and they worked really hard on the CGI for the aliens as well. They had reached a point at this point in Voyager where they thought that they could pull something like this off.
Yes.
And there had been times remember Macrocosm we talked about on the show with the alien pastiche?
Yeah.
There were even parts in there. That was actually the episode that convinced them that they could do this.
Okay.
But some of the parts in Macrocosm were like, okay. I think it's maybe more about actors interacting with things that aren't there than the technical capability of the computers. But that is taken care of mostly in this episode. And if you want more technical details, you can look it up on Memory Alpha, or we actually have an episode about Scorpion on Enterprising Individuals this year where we talk about some of the technical aspects.
Oh, nice.
But yeah, they really hemmed and hawed and sort of wondered about whether they should do a full CGI. But yeah, I think the result is satisfying.
Yeah, I would like them to, I would like Star Trek to be selective about it. You don't need a CG Gorn. You could put a guy in a lizard suit, but
yeah, right, yeah. But you get him in Enterprise,
exactly. But in this, it's like you can't just put a guy in a suit,
and they designed it for that reason. Yeah, they gave it like a third leg, and the way that they have those, their neck is like if you took the skin off of somebody's neck, they have detached tendons and parts that you can see through. They designed all those things so you would know that there was not a person in there. It was all CGI.
Yeah, so really clever all around on the design, I think.
I think that they're a little too power creepish. You've got to get something that can beat the Borg, and the Borg is the toughest there is. Then these guys have 100 times GNA, and they've got psychic powers, man, and they can spit acid, and they've got 3 legs, and and their ships can do a Voltron gun thing that makes a Death Star that can blow up planets and stuff.
I kind of liked it though, because when they introduced the Borg into Star Trek, it's very much like you think you can beat anything, but what if you had to fight something that you can't beat? Basically, it was very much that.
This isn't John Colicos with blackface on. These are space zombies. Now what? Yeah.
So it's like what? Yeah, it is power creep or whatever. But I think for this purpose, it works. I don't know. I kind of loved it. I didn't know the thing about. I missed the line about 100 times DNA or something. That's like some Dragon Ball Z power level stuff, but
no. And they have they come from fluidic space, which I think that if you could take anything away from this, that's it.
That's crazy, yeah.
That's insane. I know. Imagine you think of the primordial soup on Earth. Imagine if the universe was primordial soup.
Right.
What would come out of that? Or how does it even work? I'm not worried about ships because we've established that Voyager can maneuver in atmosphere. I think it goes underwater, I think, in later episodes. But if you generate a warp bubble, you are changing space. So it doesn't really matter what medium you're in. You can still travel at warp, right? But
I guess so.
But are there planets in their universe? Are there suns? How does that work?
Is there gravity?
Yeah, right.
Why'd they build ships? I guess they go faster through the...
Yeah, and plus the ships are made of the same stuff they are. So, do they secrete the ships, or...
Are these shit ships? Is that...
Do they shit the ships?
Oh, my gosh.
I'm detecting species 8472 shits off the starboard bow.
Again, I like that it's you sort of expect, we're in the Borg territory, so we're going to spend this series learning more about the Borg. You're going to be surprised, that Star Trek loves, iBorg. They twisted the Borg somewhat,
Yeah.
So you expect that, but then they come in and they're like, fluidic space.
Whoa!
Whoa, okay.
What do you think about that, Leonardo da Vinci?
What? Yeah, they should have asked him specifically what to do. What do you think about these aliens?
Yeah, none of this bullshit. You're talking about crap, and I come up with some great idea. Well, here it is, Leonardo. We've got fluidic space aliens. What would you do? You're a genius.
He'd figure it out.
They do that. I love those shows where you just assume that this guy's a genius. Like when you bring Shakespeare to, the 21st century, and he's like, no, I get it. It's a cell phone. It's words through the air. Because I'm a genius. Genius genius knows no time zone. And they kind of do that later on. The Da Vinci character comes back for another episode where he gets his hands on the doctor's mobile emitter. And so he finds himself in a, culture where he's seeing alien technology and different aliens. And he thinks he's in like, oh, this is the Americas. But he's like, check this out. This gun shoots lightning, and it's like a phaser.
Okay, I've never seen that. That sounds cool.
It's okay. I don't know if it's great, but they do fly that they get that glider to work though.
Oh yeah. I like that she's like playing games with him when she like so clearly has such an advantage. But I guess that's kind of like the power fantasy of going on the holodeck,
Right? Yeah. In this timeline of the holodeck, some brilliant woman gave some suggestions to Da Vinci, and suddenly he's got a working car or something like that.
It is.
Instead of flapping, why not soaring? And he's like, "Oh, I'm so dumb. I didn't think of that."
Yeah, she would have loved Assassin's Creed.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah. Oh, yeah. That'd be an awesome holodeck experience.
Oh, I'm a badass assassin, and Da Vinci wants to be my best friend.
Yeah, Da Vinci wants to hang out with me. No big deal. I love the Borg action. I love the Species 8472 action and everything they go through in this episode. But something that I really love is the conflict between Janeway and Chakotay, which, like I mentioned earlier, I don't think ever really gets explored all the way, but this is, you take what you get. And I love the fact that they are so in sync and so chummy early on when they're not being challenged. And then later on, they have a fight, I mean, they basically just, he tells her, you're wrong. You're wrong. They're too dangerous. You have a thing. Oh boy, man's telling a woman something where you don't know when to step back. You think you see it too clearly. You think you understand the situation. And he's got a point, and she's got a point too, that they have an opportunity. If we could wait for them to fight it out, but if we wait and one of them wins and it's the wrong one, then we're double fucked, So we need to move now when the chaos is. And she only wins the argument because she's the boss. And later on, when she's not the boss and he's the boss, he makes a different decision. And when she wakes up, she's pissed.
Yeah.
And I can't remember.
Love that.
I can't remember if court martial comes out in the air. I mean, what's she going to do? They've got 60 years to get home still. But she's of the mind that he had no right to do that. Now, I kind of disagree with her because if she's incapacitated, I mean, there's a precedent for standing orders, but if she's incapacitated and he doesn't know if she's going to wake up, it's his ship.
Yeah, no, that was what was good about this was I feel like there's you can almost look at both of their sides and go fair point to at least some of it, okay, I get what you're doing. And I guess in the end, they both had ideas that made them successful. So I love that.
And even with those disagreements, they're still able to work together at the end. I love the little, the little magic trick that Janeway does, where she's, they have the disagreement, and she comes back to Seven, and she says that I sent her to the brig, which is kind of like an olive branch to the Borg, saying he killed your people. We put him in jail. But then when the Borg turns on her, she's like, codename Scorpion, and they're ready to spring the trap card that they had ready to go the whole time.
Yeah. I like, because at first I was because she just goes, well, we just need to get along, and we can disagree, but we just need to get along or whatever. And I was like, well, this seems like I'm sensing a cop out ending coming here, but it wasn't. It just felt like let's just get along now, even though we have disagreements. But it sounded then they reveal the plan, And you trust that, okay, they came up with a sort of a compromise, that, or at least not a compromise, but they took both their perspectives to create this one. Because Chakotay has this whole story about the scorpion, and the moral of it actually turns out to be not just don't trust the scorpion, but you got to sting the scorpion while it's not looking.
That's
when you're close enough to let it go.
That's funny. Yeah, I mean, like, people's natures and them cleaving to them are all over, this episode or this series of episodes. People just not being able to be swayed by something, or just being, we are the sum of total of our experiences, right? Like, right. Chakotay is somebody who watched authority and watched the Federation just leave when he needed them the most to protect, like, his home and the Maquis. And so, yeah, I mean, you kind of get where everybody's coming from. And I don't know, like, it's one of those things where I don't want to say morality is subjective. I don't believe that. I think that there is probably, I don't know. Well, how do you, question for you.
Okay.
The Federation has its ideals, right?
Uh-huh.
They pull into a planetary system where the people of that system are doing something they don't like, something that they would consider like a rights abuse. What is their responsibility to those people, if any?
Oh my gosh. This is like every Prime Directive episode boiled down.
But I've heard people say that the Prime Directive is a great idea, but I feel like I've heard more people say that the Prime Directive is a bad idea, and it is cowardice for a society with so much power to do good, to see bad things happen and to let them happen. That is like the definition of evil.
Right. But then I guess it's like, who's deciding these things? Like, do we think Starfleet, like, can you do the flip side of the Prime Directive? You have that rule, but then you could actually decide what's right or wrong, or what, like, let's not interfere here because of the X, Y, and Z. Like, I can just see it being subverted, or the morality being decided by who, like, it's just, it's
playing God.
Yeah. So I think, I don't know, I do believe, though, like, maybe it isn't up for you to decide for other, like, you as a culture to decide what's good for other people, like, when you need to take care of yourself, I guess, in general. But I've not seen it on a scale like that. I only can see it in terms of like our country, how we live. And it's like, it does feel like, sometimes hypocritical to talk about human rights abuses, at least from the government's perspective, when it's like, we need to solve some things ourselves as well,
Right. And not, but I mean, doing those, I don't know, like, maybe I'm naive, or maybe my philosophy is just too pie in the sky. But, like, I believe, like, the right thing to do is to do as much with some education, to do as much good as you can.
Uh-huh.
And if you do that, even the bad that you end up doing wouldn't equal the good that you end up doing. Do you know what I mean? Like, the unintended consequences of doing something bad, and maybe it's utilitarian, I don't know, but might hurt some people, but you ultimately will help more people, which is maybe what a straight Irish filmmaker thinks when he makes a movie about about LGBTQ people, and he is not part of that world at all. Just to bring it back home.
Yeah. It's just so hard to think about it in the terms of Star Trek. Like you said, it's pie in the sky, but, like, at least what we knew about Star Trek at this time, or even, like, during TNG, it was extremely pie in the sky, We
were very arrogant about how good we were and the good that we could do, I think, in the 80s and early 90s when these episodes are being written. For TNG. Yeah.
Oh man,
don't fail to do good because you don't know, because you feel like you don't know enough about the situation.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean?
Okay, yeah, no, I can see that.
Maybe I don't know if that's true or not, but I just from the particular example of for gay and lesbian people, like if you're somebody who's straight and you want to help, you're going to make mistakes, and they will tell you that you have made mistakes, and then you can change it and not make those mistakes anymore.
Oh, sure, yeah, definitely. In that case, most definitely. I guess I was thinking in the terms of like intervening
Interstellar
in
war?
foreign conflicts. Yeah,
Yeah.
But definitely on a personal level, I strongly agree with that. That you should, always try to do the best you can. Yeah.
Yeah. Nobody knows where the parable of the scorpion and the frog came from. That specific parable is, I've heard it called a Russian parable. It was featured and apparently made famous in the English-speaking world by the 1955 movie Mr. Arkadin, which is written and directed and starring Orson Welles. And he credited it to Russia. There's another variation that is a Persian fable called The Scorpion and the Tortoise.
Okay.
And it's
always
almost
some passive animal, sure.
Right. But it's almost exactly the same, but the point is that the tortoise has a shell, right? So halfway through, the scorpion tries to sting the tortoise, fails, and the tortoise is like, I knew you were bad. And it really is more like about how good people are good, bad people are bad, and don't associate with bad people because they're just going to, try to sting you. But in this case, the hero of this, the tortoise, like, isn't stung, but he is just, his belief in bad people being bad is affirmed.
Yeah.
I kind of like the Russian one better because at least it's got like some good tragedy in its storytelling. But it also isn't
it's
like
a terrible story, I think.
It's not either way, yeah, but it's not like super smug and superior.
It's interesting, I think, in the context of these two pieces of media where people are trying to use them as an example, and it's like, if you think about it for long enough, it kind of falls apart a little bit, or at least the metaphor is different than what they intended it to be.
I think that's true of both pieces of media. Yeah, I think that it's easy to say that, and I think people will definitely act in their own interest or in the interest of others if they've put that above their own. But we see people's natures be questioned and change in both examples of media as well, and so nothing is hard and fast, I don't think.
Yeah, certainly. And then partially, you got to consider that if you're the frog, you just need to keep one eye on the scorpion the whole time. That's what's great about their two philosophies, Janeway and Chakotay, is they both believe, like, hey, we got to keep an eye on these things.
Oh, they have no question about, they know the scorpion has a sting for sure. Yeah.
But I think Janeway is just like, we must be vigilant but work with them, and Chakotay and them together come up with, we need to stab them in the back.
Yeah.
I love that.
We're going to scorpion the scorpion.
Who scorpions the scorpion? I love it.
Something that makes Trek is the technology of their future, which sometimes facilitates what the characters are doing, but just as often is the actual complication they're dealing with. So on every show, we randomly pick from a list of Star Trek technology, and we add what we pick to the non-Trek media, and we subtract it from the Trek episode and see how each would be different. It's our technological exchange, and I'm going to pick on our list of 10 technologies from Star Trek. We've got phasers, we've got holodecks, tricorders, transporters, warp drive, replicators, communicators, shields, advanced medical tech, and androids. And I'm going to roll on my random number selector device. And there's no way nothing could screw this up, right?
No.
Not like last week. I got a 2. I got holodecks and holographic technology.
Oh, interesting.
Oh,
not
boy.
what I expected.
Me either. So, if a simulated experience and holodecks existed in the world of the crying game, how would it be different?
It's my first thing with these is always just like how would it change the plans? Like, oh, they like Forrest Whitaker doesn't realize he's actually not talking to any people in the carnival in the beginning.
Right.
You know, like,
Yeah.
Ooh, but that's not.
Or
as,
Miranda Richardson is Stephen Ree's character.
Oh.
He just pulls off like a hollow Mission Impossible thing. And
yes,
he's Stephen Reed.
That's great. Or or that'd be a good way to maybe you could have a better ending. Then you could have some sort of hijinks with hiding out from the IRA in the end.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know what you do, but you can bamboozle them, make them think they're assassinating.
Oh, yeah. Well, first of all, the judge that they're trying to kill, who we get it, it's a whorehouse. Like the first time we see the hotel where that's a slash brothel or cat house or whatever.
Uh-huh.
There is a closed window, but it's backlit. And we see a silhouette of a man and woman embracing. It's like, okay, we got it. And then the next time we cut back to it, it's daytime, so the silhouette doesn't work. So there's literally like a woman in a bra, like looking out the window, like, oh, what's out there? Nothing, I guess. Closes the window. So it's like, no, we remember what it was. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that would just be a hollow, sex dungeon holodeck type.
Yeah,
thing.
one of Quark's weird things.
Yeah. The holosuite Vulcan love slave.
Yeah, you could have a fun, you could also have more fun bar scenes.
Yeah, the cabaret thing that would be a lot more exciting. You could have backgrounds, you could have like effects, and like it could be raining like while she's singing. And,
yeah. Oh, yeah, a sci-fi version of the Crying Game.
Jim Broadbent's character would be a hologram.
Oh wait, the bartender is
the
that?
Bartender.
Yeah, absolutely. There's something
so when she's like
unreal about him.
Yeah, she's like, tell him I'm not talking to him. He'd be like, she's not talking to you.
Yeah, or he'd be like, I am not programmed to respond in this way.
Yeah, right. That's it. That's all we got.
Well, I think it's something that like is earth-shattering for them. You know what I mean? Like,
no.
Yeah.
I think that the strength of the movie is that it's just such a fundamental story. I think you could take it out of the early 90s. It doesn't have to be IRA. I think you could put it anywhere and it would still be the same story. It would still work. I hesitate to call it noir because there are people I know who will get angry because noir has to have very specific elements, but I think that it is kind of like that.
In certain elements.
I don't know if there is a whole genre of like of LGBTQ like noir, but I'd love to see it if there is.
Yeah, that sounds pretty sweet. I was thinking maybe it's the gimmick that we talked about, the twist. Maybe you make the twist she's a hologram, but then that takes away it's speaking to anything.
Well,
but that would be the like low rent sci-fi remake of this, like...
Right. And that, I don't think Trek's ever done this with holograms, but I feel like when a character falls in love or expresses affection for a hologram, people are always like, oh, really? You're living off the hologram?
Yeah.
And nobody yet has turned that into a metaphor for like, somebody that you're not supposed to love. It's like, you don't really like that. Come on.
The Doctor fall in love with somebody.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. But they probably, I don't know what they do with that. I can't speak on it, but it would be a bad twist. Just kind of, in certain ways, the twist is not what makes this good. So.
Yeah, they try real hard though.
Yeah.
Did you read it seems like we read all the same articles off of Google, but like, did you read the one that kind of criticized the film because keeping it a twist means that it has no context for us? Like if we knew the reality of Dill's character when Fergus gets there, then he's the only one that doesn't know. So there's a dramatic irony, but we understand what it means to Dill as a character and all the other people in her circle.
Yeah. I think it's possible that you could play it like that.
I think there's an argument for that would be the better way to do it and not be sensational, but we got what we got.
Yep.
All right, so we take holograms away from Scorpion then. Well, goodbye, Doctor,
We're
first
screwed.
of all.
Bye-bye, Harry Kim.
Yeah, bye-bye Harry Kims. He's got tendrils everywhere.
The doctor is not coming to your aid, yeah.
No Leonardo, which arguably means that Janeway never has her big brain idea about having an alliance with the Porg.
Wow, yeah. I guess I didn't realize how much hologramic technology. I don't even know holographic technology. What are they? Holograms? They're holograms. So
sure.
The doctor didn't really think about it like that, but yeah, it's crucial.
I've wondered too. I guess you could just have like a TV screen to like talk to other ships and stuff like that. But the view screen that we see is one of my favorite like subtle details of Trek technology is holographic. You know, we can't when we look at it straight on day after day, we don't like really get an impression of it. But there are many times when they want to change the angle. It's not just looking at Picard's face, reverse angle, looking at a square. You'll get that shot where you get Picard and the view screen in the same shot. You know, Picard's in the foreground, the view screen's in front of him. And on the view screen, the Romulan or whoever he's talking to, their head is, we see them slightly from the side. They are facing Picard. If it was just a flat view screen, we just see a flat face. But we don't. We see, you know, a side view of that person's face, which means that is curved or a projection, a holographic projection.
I've never known that. I've never even noticed that, actually.
Yeah, it's subtle, and they don't really call attention to it, and I really like it.
Wow. That's canon. You're telling me that's canon.
Well, I don't know if anybody's ever like written an article on Memory Alpha, but if you just, you know, look at ship scenes, you'll see it.
Yeah, because now they just straight up have the hologram, which I think is not as cool.
Yeah, although, I mean, they have that technology. I guess it makes sense to do. I either want them to do it or not, and I don't care. I don't need some twisted like justification like they have in Discovery as to why, you know, Captain Pike doesn't like holograms or something like that.
That's very prequel-y.
That's a waste of time for me. Yeah.
I think in general their lives on the ship would be more miserable because their recreation would be even more limited. So they'd probably be even more desperate in this episode too.
Yeah, they're just, we got to take that way home if we got it. Yeah. A lot of checkers.
They'd go into the Northwest Passage, I think, for sure.
Yeah. Which I know, like, technically.
Bad name,
actually,
right?
Well, technically, like, and ironically, because of climate change, I think that, you know, there are definite Northwest Passages now where you can, you know, sail from one end of the continent to the other. But isn't it kind of ironic to call it that when explorers in, you know, early times looked for this thing that didn't exist? They thought that they were easily going to be able to sail through this continent. And, you think Voyager would know their history a little better.
Well, maybe, you know, Meta, that's a great name. I thought it was just kind of a cheesy name, but now I like it. So
I like the dramatic irony of Starfleet officers not knowing how much they don't know.
Yeah, you know, it happened a couple 100 years ago, you know.
They detect this area and they're like, it's fine. There's just a bunch of quantum singularities in it. Well, that's never been a problem.
Yeah. Borg they're allergic, probably. Borg allergy.
They're all itchy, yeah. And when you don't have fingers, you've only got like a, you know, little thing that goes back and forth. You can't scratch.
Oh yeah, their little claw doesn't work. That's.
I think we nailed it.
We nailed it.
Last week's exchange killed the episode. Actually, killed the episode and the film. And this week, just fine. Everybody's fine.
Yeah, well, we enhanced one thing, and then we did kill another thing, I guess.
Well, a little bit, yeah. Should we tell people what's coming up on the next episode of BackTrekking?
Okay, so our next episode is I guess a bonus. It's a triple threat.
Don't get people's hopes up.
Okay, well, we'll see what we do with it, but we're going to be talking about the episode The Wounded from Star Trek The Next Generation, and how it relates, maybe is inspired by Heart of Darkness, which in itself inspired Apocalypse Now. So it's like, it's going multiple ways, which I think will be fun.
Yeah, you know, just a little light reading and a little light movie watching.
Light, very light.
And it'll be fun.
It'll be
Can we make a gentleman's agreement right now that we're not doing the redo, we're just watching Apocalypse Now?
Yeah, okay. I'm so down with that.
We don't want to do that redo.
No.
Stay out of that.
No.
So that'll be light and fun and enjoying for the next time that we come back. But that's it for this week's BackTrekking. Thanks for listening, everybody. If you like the show, tell a friend and follow us at BackTrekking on Twitter. And also tell us what you think that we should check out in future episodes. Gooey, tell the people where they can find you online.
Find me on Twitter at Gooey Fame. Check out from their virtual theater. As you mentioned, we're going to be talking about Sonic the Hedgehog in the impending week, so we're pretty excited about that. So it's going to be fun.
Nice. And I'm on Twitter at Ka1iban. That's Ka1iban on Twitter. And Enterprising Individuals, by the time that you hear this, will be up and running. Our first supplemental episode will be out, which is a companion piece to our premiere episode on which we talk about Captain's Holiday, the TNG episode. So you can check that out at EISTpod on Twitter or at enterprisingindividuals.com. That's it for us. We'll see you soon. And until then, keep on trekking.